And welcome to another episode of Patriots 4th and 2. I am your host, as always, Derek Havens. And joining me is Mr. Steve Balestrieri. We also have Michael Diabate joining us today as well. Today's episode, very, very exciting. We have ESPN's own Field Yates here. Field, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, good to be on with you guys. Hope you're doing well. We're having this conversation just 10 days out from the 2025 NFL draft. So very exciting time upon us.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually just listening to the First Draft podcast last night when I was in bed, and I just saw that the Mel Kiper final mock just dropped a second ago.
That's right.
So
we are rocking and rolling here. A lot of mock draft content on First Draft this year because, as you guys know, people love their mock drafts. They're great for not just entertainment, but we hope some information as well, which this is a very unusual draft class, but we're doing our best to land we're trying to land close to the pin, like Rory on the playoff hole yesterday.
Absolutely. Well, let's just jump right into it. So, specifically with the Patriots, there's obviously a lot of prospects at number 4. There's a lot of different directions they could go. But I think the biggest thing, non-Patriots related specifically, is do you think that 2 quarterbacks will go in the top 3? It feels like a fait accompli that Cam Ward's going to be going to number 1 to the Tennessee Titans. So the question is there another one? Because obviously that changes who could drop to the Patriots at 4.
Yeah, my guess right now, 10 days out, is no, that there will be just one quarterback that goes before the Patriots. I thought as of probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, there was a chance that 2 would go. You have to be careful in assigning too much to intel in the pre-draft process, right? It's not like teams anywhere on the board are motivated to reveal their plans publicly, right? There's a lot of reasons to not do that and very few reasons to do that. So that being said, as best I've been able to gather, the sense, and I'm going to use the word sense because I don't think anything is hard and fast in terms of information. The sense I've been getting is that the Giants and, of course, the Browns at 2 are unlikely to take a quarterback at 2 or 3. So that leaves the Patriots in a scenario where they're probably choosing between a field of players or a pool of players that does not include Cam Ward, who wouldn't be on the radar at all anyways, Travis Hunter, and Abdul Carter. Everybody else seems to be fair game for the Patriots at 4th overall.
Makes sense. Well, before I go to Steve for the next question, in a draft class like this where so many people, who are experts, such as yourself, like say that there's a lot of prospects with similar grades, from, I don't know, wherever you want to call it, say from like 10 to like 30 or however you want to classify it. Does that make it really hard to do from your perspective? Does that make it really hard to kind of like sift through all the guys and decide where, guys are like how guys are going to project or how things are going to land, for the day of the draft?
It does. And we actually had this conversation towards the end of our show today. So people might hear it in a bit more depth. But the point that I essentially made to Greeny was that our job is to try to, if we were just doing mock drafts that were based off how we would do it, then mock drafts might look a lot different, and they might all look a lot different from each other, right? So my mock draft might be a whole lot different than Mel's versus somebody else's. You go on and on. But a lot of what we're doing in mock drafts is trying to use our sort of information and our evaluations and pair them with what we think the league will do, how we think the league will approach it. But you're sort of going for the average there, like canvassing the opinions and finding the consensus, when the truth is that, and Patriots fans know this better than probably any fan base, consensus means nothing to some of these teams, right? I mean, if consensus were the way that it went, the Patriots wouldn't do some of the things that they have done for many, many years, right? Yep. I mean, Bill Belichick famously built his own board, and for a long time it worked brilliantly, and then in recent drafts it just wasn't as successful. But the Lions were panned a few drafts ago when they didn't take. They took Jahmyr Gibbs 12th overall, and then Jack Campbell, I think it was 17th or 19th overall, and everybody, you could take those guys later. Well, they didn't, and nobody is looking back on the Jahmyr Gibbs pick and saying, wow, man, the Lions probably regret doing that. So
yeah,
I say all that to say that, you try to put together a mock as best you can based off the intel that you're gathering and the way you see the players. It just takes one guy to throw it off, right? If I have Mykel Williams going 30th and he goes 12th in the mock in the real draft, well, then there's going to be a pretty significant ripple effect that could make picks 12 through 29 or 13 through 30 look not so great.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Steve, over to you.
Well, go to Mike first.
Okay, Mike, go ahead.
Field, first of all, thanks for taking the time out today. We really
Sure thing.
appreciate you joining us. Before we get back into the draft for just a moment,
Yeah.
obviously the New England Patriots came into this offseason with a lot of holes, a lot of cash to burn in their pocket,
Yeah.
spent a good amount of money to upgrade some of their positions of need. It definitely has Patriots fans here in the region excited for the future. New coach Mike Vrabel, you got some shiny new toys that are going to be available on this roster for the first time in a long while. You have the unique position of being an NFL national insider, but also have such indelible ties to this area and this region and this fan base.
Yeah.
I was wondering, from a national standpoint, are there some similar feelings at the national level to the local level? Because a lot of local fans are excited enough to consider the Patriots a playoff contender, maybe for one of those final spots in the playoffs. Do you think that that same sentiment could possibly go throughout the league, or maybe could be enhanced with a solid performance in the draft?
Yeah, the Patriots got to really hit the draft hard to make people, I think, get to that level on a national scale. I think where the Patriots are going to probably fall into is this: is every year we have kind of our true blue contenders. I'm sure in the AFC it'll be Kansas City and Baltimore and Buffalo and maybe Cincinnati that are viewed in that regard. Perhaps you can throw Houston into that mix. Whatever, the Chargers, whoever you want to throw into that mix, right?
Mhm.
Then there'd be a couple others that it's like likely playoff contenders, right? Maybe it's Pittsburgh because they always seem to win at least 9 games. Maybe it's the Broncos in year 2 with Sean Payton and Bo Nix after they made the playoffs last year. Then there's going to be like the sneaky playoff candidates. And I think the Patriots would probably garner some support in that regard for this reason. I mean, let's be honest. You have a quarterback, you have a chance. Drake May is such an impressive young prospect and did so much last year with very little around him, and obviously a shaky coaching situation. Not that he knew it was going to happen, but when you fire someone after one season, it tells you that staff was not kind of cutting it. On top of that, Mike Vrabel comes with some immediate cachet. He's a known quantity. He's been a very successful head coach. He has really some rare interpersonal traits that are so impressive. But also, it does feel like this division right now has a clear favorite in the Bills. But for the past few years, it's been like, are the Patriots even as good as the Jets, the Dolphins? Feels like the window's been cracked open a little bit for the Patriots to make up some ground. The Jets still kind of building things up themselves. And then Miami, the question I think becomes, has that team sort of, I don't say they have not maxed out. I don't think it's fair to say they've maxed out. But, a few straight years here of like pretty good but not great makes people wonder if there is a lower ceiling on Miami, maybe in part because they aren't as much believers in Tua Tagovailoa as they would be whatever the best version of Drake May can become.
Excellent. And I think that leads me quite nicely into my next question for you, which you said earlier, the Patriots need to really hit the draft hard in order to change the national perception. And I think a lot of that will deal with how they fill the remaining holes on this roster. Left tackle continues to be the white elephant in the room. That's a big time need for this team. And Will Campbell, Armand Membu are constantly mentioned as potential targets for the Patriots at number 4. If you're the Patriots GM, do you have a preference at this point? And which way do you think they're going to lean at this point? Do they go in this direction, or do you think they go in another direction and maybe wait until the latter part of the first round, try to trade back, maybe maximize the position that way?
I'm going to continue to assume, based off of the earlier portion of our conversation, that both Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter are gone.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think Will Campbell is the pick. And I've been a Will fan throughout the process. And, I've stated this, I think consistently and clearly on our show First Draft and whenever it's been asked to me, is that, like, you have to choose on Will Campbell. You have to decide whether the arm length matters to you or not. And some people start with the arm length and use it as a disqualifier before they even really dig into the tape, because they say the law of averages is hard to argue against. And I believe last year, if you look at week 1 starting left tackles, there were just 2 of them. Bernard Raymond for the Colts and Alaric Jackson for the Rams, who were at or below that 32 and a half or 32 and 5/8 threshold, somewhere in that range. My colleague Matt Miller pulled it up at some point. If you draft Will Campbell, it would be that would be a little bit of he would be more the outlier than the rule. On top of that, but besides that, though, is that, like, the tape, man, is just freaking awesome, right? And I thought Ben Johnson for the Bears really articulated this well, is that, like, he looks at it, but it's more so, I'm watching the tape and this guy is constantly having defensive tackles get their hands up in his chest and kind of driving right through him, because he just doesn't have the the reach to get there, then it's something that I go back and I check, and it might raise more of a red flag. For me, it hasn't been a problem. I felt like the arm length was rarely an issue for Will Campbell. He makes up for it with footwork and technique and tenacity. He's a very aggressive man. He's very well built. So, in terms of density and physical stature, really tough guy, strong guy, powerful guy. He's 6'6", 319 pounds. He's not some 6'2.5" left tackle who's got T-Rex arms. So I continue to believe Will Campbell is a top 5 player in this class, and to me, very good left tackle prospect.
Yeah, when Dante Scarnecchia gives the seal of approval and says that this kid's abilities and his intangibles on the field kind of make you forget about the measurables, it says something. And who's a better consigliere than Dante Scarnecchia? So thank you, Field.
I can't think of anybody. It's a very short list of people that are even in the same conversation as Dante. So certainly a lot of reason to put stock into what he has to say.
Absolutely.
All right, Steve, over to you.
Yeah, Field. Let's look at the draft as a whole. I mean, we kind of figure Cam Ward's going to go number 1.
Yep.
But there's a couple of teams that are still searching for quarterbacks. Do you believe any of them will be willing to at least try to trade up to get Shedeur Sanders at this point?
Yeah. So I don't think a team is going to make a push up to number 4. I think the candidates of teams that aren't that could be in the quarterback market would include at some point relatively early in the draft. I'm talking like top 3 rounds. The Raiders, the Jets, Saints. I don't think it's round 1 for the Raiders. I don't think it's round 1 for the Jets. I'm not even certain it's round 1 for the Saints. So I just don't think a big market's going to pop up for that number 4 overall pick. And I think if you're the Patriots, that's fine. As much as, and I understand how this cycle of news works. It's not sexy or as glamorous when it's not Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter, and instead it's Will Campbell and highly scrutinized left tackle prospect. You have to take somebody. You got to feel really good about that player. I think there's a lot of reasons to feel really good about Will Campbell, on top of the fact that if the games began tomorrow, and they don't, but the Patriots are lining up Vidarian Lowe at left tackle, guys, and that's just unacceptable, or at least not good enough based on what we saw last season, right? There's a line you have to be above at left tackle, regardless of how mobile your quarterback is, and the Patriots are below that line right now. So I think the Patriots, probably the most likely outcome is they hang tight at number 4 overall, and they pick a player. And I'm not saying it's 100%. But Mike has sort of asked, which way do you lean? I lean towards Will Campbell. I think Armand Membu is a name to consider, but I personally have a higher grade by a little bit on Will Campbell, on top of the fact that he is a left tackle for the entirety of his life, and you don't have to worry as much about what the transition would look like as would be the case with Armand Membu, who certainly could become a left tackle, but not having done it previously, there is one more box that you haven't checked off that you have in the case of Will Campbell.
Yeah, and a second question for you, kind of offbeat one. I know every year there's a guy who comes out of nowhere in the late rounds that surprises everybody. Do you have your eye on any particular guy that might not be high on anyone's draft boards right now that you think is going to be a real player?
Yeah, I've got a name of a guy that I've been talking about a decent amount. Chandler Martin from Memphis, linebacker, he's heat-seeking missile. He is a freaking fast man. He plays sideline to sideline. He had 7 sacks this past season. Played really well as both a blitzer, but also an occasional, just from the edge rusher as well. Linebacking play in the NFL is so much dependent upon the system you play in. For the Patriots, I think they kind of traded some size this offseason for guys who might be sort of instincts and movement players, right? No longer having Juwan Bentley. You don't have that big downhill thumper who's just going to set the tone for you, but you got guys like Robert Spillane, who coming out of college was not regarded as this. He wasn't even regarded as a surefire thing, right? But the Patriots now have paid him significant money. He made a ton of tackles this past season for the Raiders. So Martin might not appeal to everybody, but he appeals to the right kind of team that's willing to trade some size for some explosive burst.
Yeah,
Excellent.
absolutely. Yeah, I heard you talk about him on the first draft show the other day.
Yeah.
I ended up going and looking at some of his stuff and checking him out. He seems like Vrabel seems to like the linebackers that go sideline to sideline.
Yeah.
You know, so I thought I kind of put an asterisk by his name. You know, you already kind of answered this question, and I know you have to go, so I'll just leave you with this. So, who do you think will be the Patriots pick at number 4? Are you thinking Will Campbell's going to be the guy?
Yeah, I feel like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire when you get the opportunity to give your final answer? Was that what it was? Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Whatever you can phone a friend. Yeah, okay. Final answer, right? I think it was it Regis Philbin who initially hosted that show? Yeah. Final answer, Will Campbell, left tackle, Louisiana State University will be my pick. Other name, I think Mason Graham, Armand Membu. That's kind of the assortment of names that I've thought about the most. But Will would be who I think. Again, this is not intel. This is just me, putting my analyst hat on. I think Will Campbell is the most logical number 4 candidate for the Patriots. Immensely tough player with a ton of experience and at a premium position that is a premium need right now.
Yeah, and also speaking of Mike Vrabel, guys, seems like a guy that Mike Vrabel would be all over.
Totally.
From an aggression, violent style of play. It just seems like it just makes all the sense in the world, especially when you combine that with the team need already. So, Field, thank you so much for joining us today. I know you're a busy man at this time of year, and we have to let you go. But thank you so much again for joining us for a few minutes and talking to the draft.
Derek, Mike, and Steve, thank you, gentlemen. Have a great rest of the show, and looking forward to 10 days from right now.
Yeah,
awesome.
Excellent.
We really appreciate your time. You're the best, man.
Talk to you soon.
Talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
So that was a fun show to do. I figured since he dropped off, I would just ask for your guys' reaction to it.
Well, Field is one of the best in the business, not only professionally but personally. Truly a great friend of the program and someone whose insight, again, has such indelible meaning here in New England, not only because of his stature as an NFL analyst, and he's really climbed to the top of his profession, but also someone that has such ties to the area. And he's known so well here for his time covering New England and covering the Patriots, and the like that he has garnered from Patriots fans in this region is truly still there. So at this point, when he talks, you're going to listen. And I think he made some amazing points today, and really everything when it relates to the New England Patriots. I thought his appearance today was definitely a plus, no question about it. And we were definitely fortunate to have him today.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's been cool to see like his kind of rise and ascension into all of ESPN's many platforms, and for people that like the draft who listen to the show. The First Draft podcast is a really good conversation with Mel Kiper, and sometimes they have Matt Miller and Jordan Reed. They have a lot of guys on there that bring a lot to the table. Steve, what did you think?
Well, Field's always one of the best. I mean, I don't watch the network as much anymore, but I do watch when he's on. I mean, it comes down to. He's always spot on with his analysis. I like him, Daniel Jeremiah, a couple of those guys like that, because they're always spot on with their analysis of players. And, we really, really appreciate him taking time. I know, as we said several times, this is his busy time of the year, and to get him to spend, 15, 20 minutes with us was really, really cool. And, I think he's probably right that the Patriots are going to take Campbell. I've been thinking that all along.
Yep.
But a little part of me is hoping they go for Jalen Walker. So we'll see how that works out.
Yeah, no, I could have talked to him for an hour if he had the time for it. Thanks for everyone commenting in who's watching live as well. We appreciate that. Please do subscribe to us on our Patriots 4th and 2 YouTube channel, as well as can you like, share, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. It keeps us high in the podcast rankings for other Patriots fans to find us. We want to probably come back here and do a mailbag episode. We also have our annual first round mock, so keep an eye out for those. And the next, probably, obviously the next 10 days, and then we'll do a recap show and discuss all the picks as well. So keep your eyes peeled out and your ears for that one. Thanks again for everyone listening, and we will see you guys
in about
next
5
time.
minutes. We'll come back and we'll put a bow on this one and come back and do our mailbag episode. So don't go away, because we'll be right back.
We'll be right back.